Welcome to the Risk and Repeat podcast, episode number 246. I'm Rob Wright, Security News Director at Informa Tech Target, and I am here with Senior Security News Writer Alex Kalafi. Alex, welcome.
Thanks, Rob.
What a week we've been having.
It's been a disorienting couple weeks. I feel like once I get the grasp on some either real life or security news, the world has already moved on to something even crazier.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, we're going to stick with technology news today, and we're going to stick with a specific topic, a specific
Sure.
company that's become, I guess, the belle of the ball, the hot item. I am referring to none other than DeepSeek.
hmm
DeepSeek has exploded onto the technology scene, the AI scene. They released a reasoning model. They are a Chinese startup that few people knew about prior to, I guess, last week. But now it seems the whole world knows about DeepSeek and its technology and how it's disrupting the American technology industry and the leading AI providers out there. Alex,
hmm
what do we know about DeepSeek? What can you tell me about DeepSeek?
DeepSeek is an interesting one because I hadn't really heard about it until, I don't know, Monday or Tuesday of this
Yeah.
week. It really feels like we all woke up on Monday and we didn't choose to know what DeepSeek was, but we all knew what DeepSeek was. And it is, as you said, this Chinese AI startup. It's been around for a while. It's not like they're actually like new and appeared out of nowhere. It's just more that I feel like unless you were so dialed into to generative AI, LLMs as a topic, you maybe hadn't heard of them before. Um, and they're causing all this fervor because the AI industry, as we know it, has been led by a lot of companies based in North America, specifically the United States. And there's been billions and billions, and I believe over $1 trillion at this point, probably funneled into this technology because it's become the new hotness, whether it be for legitimate or cynical reasons, whatever. Um, and one of the claims to fame for DeepSeek is that it created its LLM, which it describes as a reasoning model, which is a whole thing, but it's an LLM for a fraction of the training cost of OpenAI's, I believe, reasoning model equivalent. Um, and I think you have a bit of a Rocky Four angle to this. I think you have a bit of a Sputnik situation maybe here where look at all this money we invested and this Chinese startup is doing it for way cheaper and it seems really good. It jumped up to, I think, the number one iPhone App Store free apps rankings above ChatGPT,
hmm
and its influence came so hard and fast that the Nvidia lost like something like $500 billion of its market cap in the span of like a day. And it struggled to recover, although I think its stock did stabilize. Google, Meta, Microsoft all seemingly took I think like basically single single digit percentage point dips that it's kind of they've kind of mostly recovered from, if I remember right, but it still had a huge impact on the markets, and it's been you've seen the companies themselves react in all sorts of ways, from oh, this is competition that's interesting, to let's say Sputnik era language,
Red
to
Menace, yeah.
Red Menace type language, to um I have to, was it Sam Altman or Microsoft investigating whether this new plagiarism machine plagiarized their plagiarism machine? So
Yep.
it's just been a whole thing, Rob.
Yes. Yes, it has.
And it's interacted with our neck of the woods in in some limited but interesting ways because on their status page, maybe it was Tuesday that this happened. Uh or maybe it started Monday, but
I
we
think it
wrote
started
about it
Monday. Yep. Yeah.
started Monday evening maybe, but we talked about it Tuesday. On their status page, they were talking about how there were malicious attacks targeting it, but it didn't specify what they meant at all. They took new user registrations down, and we really haven't found out that much more about it. Well, maybe we found out a little bit more, but maybe we haven't. It's kind of weird. Would you say that up until the Wiz stuff, I've sort of summarized it?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that it is a little strange, and it's hard to keep up with everything that's gone on with DeepSeek over the past 4 or 5 days. The model came out on January 20th, so it's not like this has happened in the span of a couple days. It hasn't. But as I mentioned to you, between sort of the stocks on Monday, the market capitalization wipeout for Nvidia, I think it was close to 600 million or 600 billion, and just the hyper accelerated news cycle around this company. It feels like we have taken an entire like year's worth of ups and downs and compressed them into this whirlwind, 3, 4 day span. So it's been hard to keep up with what's been going on with the company and every the reactions to it, what's been going on with the competition. Just today we had, or I think it was yesterday, Alibaba, another Chinese company, said, "Wait, wait, wait! No, we have a model that's even better than DeepSeek's." Uh, I think just going back to the way that this started to unfold, this storyline around the company, I think I heard this comparison made recently on the 404 Media podcast. I thought it was an excellent comparison to help kind of like distill it down for people that may not know like what the latest NVIDIA chips are doing and like what the difference between one model and another and the consumption and the costs and all that. But they compared it to a basically like if America said only the US and Western nations can get a PS5 and
Mm,
China has to get a PS3, and China got all these PS3s and turned around and made the best video game on the market that looks just as good as the PS5. So for
yeah,
parlance that you and I can appreciate with video games, uh, I thought that was a really astute comparison.
sure.
But the thing that is really interesting about all this was just I know like there was a ton of coverage over the last week plus about how DeepSeek's models performed as good, if not better, in some testing and with some benchmarks than OpenAI and Gemini and others. But like I don't know what I'm looking at. Like I don't understand what I'm looking at with a lot of these benchmark tests and these studies and like who's doing them. I haven't vetted them. It just seemed like that was a very like that was a narrative that was building around this company very quickly. But when Sam Altman comes out and says the model is very impressive and we're going to do everything we can do to, you know, get back to the top or whatever to surpass it, I guess that gives you an indication that for whatever those test results are showing and whoever's performing those test results, there's something legitimate about this company and what it's done, the technology with this model, the R1, and how it performs against the leading American tech companies. It's just weird that based on the paper that the company released about how it built this model, these models, these reasoning models, that we're just kind of taking it at face value that they are doing it for a fraction of the cost of what American companies spent. Like we don't have a ton of visibility into what they're doing. We don't have much visibility at all, really. So I thought that was interesting. but then, to talk like to circle back to your point about the reaction to a Chinese company infringing on turf that American companies and Americans thought that they owned and were the clear, undisputed leaders. It is a little strange that suddenly, as this company like skyrockets to the top of the market and skyrockets to the top of the App Store, and all of a sudden it goes down, or at least part of the service goes down. They're not allowing new registrations. In fact, I think I just saw, so the status page doesn't say the issue is resolved, but the new sign up no longer has the banner saying we're restricting um, new accounts registrations. So it seems like they've fixed whatever the issue is there. I don't know. What did you make when you first saw that they said like nondescript malicious attacks were the reason that things were going haywire over there? What was your reaction? Because I know what mine was.
My reaction was maybe they're lying. Well, like I think I've learned from you that always choose cynicism first, right? So
Thanks.
maybe you know what? It's a good skill to have in
Sure.
what we do. Maybe they're lying, maybe it's just overload. But the thing is, there are a lot of complicated forms that malicious activity can take
Sure.
when it comes to LLMs.
Sure.
There could be a DDoS situation. There could be prompt injection type stuff. There could be jailbreaking efforts on a fairly large scale. There could be some vulnerability that popped up that made them nervous. And they wanted to make sure that just not any user had access to it.
Hmm.
There's a million different things. So I think at first I was very distrustful, and then when I sat on it for and cynical, but when I sat on it for maybe a few hours, I was more like, ah, there could be something here. It's just frustrating. We don't have any data. But you know what? What's really coloring this, and you were talking about it before, the very strange way that tech executives have been talking about DeepSeek is that I am, as an individual, someone who does not root for LLMs. I don't root for any of this new AI wave. I'm not whatever. I'm open to having my mind changed, but I think a lot of the way the technology has been applied and sold has been pretty frustrating.
Yep.
So it's like I have no reason to give DeepSeek the benefit of the doubt, but when a Sam Altman type is like, "Hey, do you know that they're harvesting your data and tracking your clicks and keystrokes and all this?" I'm like,
Yep.
"You know what else is harvesting every ounce of data you give it and a lot that you don't? The American AI companies."
Yeah.
So it's like it's one of those weird things where, we write stories. I feel we do a very good job of doing things by the book. But if you're asking me how I feel about all this, it's like I have no reason to give DeepSeek the benefit of the doubt, but everyone around them has been so weird and annoying that I almost am inclined to be like, maybe they're right and maybe they are getting hacked. I don't
Yeah.
know. Is that unfair to
No,
say?
it's not. The reaction to this like we were talking about, the reaction to this company and their newfound prominence and notoriety and fame has really been in some from some people in some sectors in some groups has been a little jarring,
Hmm.
and distasteful, I'll just say. And I don't need
Yeah,
to go into it further than that.
sure.
At the same time, though, if a company that is as good at AI as apparently DeepSeek is, as good at technology as they are, I do find it a little strange that they come out and say, "Oh, the reason that our service isn't working right now is because of malicious, like nondescript malicious attacks." Uh, I want to know what the attacks are. And
Yes.
everyone sort of widely believed that it was DDoS. It's a little weird to me because it didn't seem like that it was affecting the website or the service itself. They were just limiting the number of new registrations. They turned new registrations off effectively. So that immediately indicated to me, well, they're probably just struggling with demand. But then, like you, I go back on, the other way, basically because I mean, it's Thursday now. This started on Monday. That's got to be a heck of a sustained DDoS attack. And no, there's no third-party organization out there that's detected that, a massive cascade of traffic or any of the hallmarks of, a major DDoS directed at a public website like DeepSeek. Um, so it's tough to tell. It's tough to tell if there was really something going on or if this is just them struggling with demand. And I I think I think part of the cybersecurity research that has popped up this week about DeepSeek and its offerings, I don't know, that may indicate more what's going on. I haven't really decided yet. It's again, it's tough because we don't know. We don't know. No one's gotten any real answer from the company, from spokespeople about what these malicious attacks entail, what the fix they're trying to implement is, why it's only affecting like new registrations, why they turned it off, et cetera, et cetera. But you mentioned the Wiz research. Wiz yesterday, cloud security company, they put out a report, and other folks on Twitter had talked about InfoSec Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, social media, had talked about potential issues with DeepSeek, but they found something that I thought was really interesting, which is basically they found an exposed database that did not have any, I guess, access control or really anything. And I'll read from the report. Wiz Research, I'm quoting, quote, Wiz Research has identified a publicly accessible ClickHouse database belonging to DeepSeek, which allows full control over database operations, including the ability to access internal data. The exposure includes over 1 million lines of log streams containing chat history, secret keys, backend details, and other highly sensitive information, end quote. And then Wiz goes on to say they reported it. DeepSeek promptly secured the exposure. It's all good. Well, it's not really all good. Wiz didn't say it's all good. They actually expressed some concern because, I mean, that's a lot of data, and the fact that it was just open and not secured in any real meaningful sense, an unauthenticated user can just get in there and get at that data is a
Hmm.
little troubling. So I don't know, maybe DeepSeek is really good at developing AI reasoning models, but not great at other tech stuff. I suppose it's possible. I don't know. I mean, is it SQL injection vulnerabilities are not, we're told every year they're very basic, OWASP, top 10, all that. Like these are the types of things that when you do application testing, you do fuzzing, you do simple things, simple reviews like that. That's the kind of stuff, the basic stuff that should be caught. And yet that was not the case here. So I don't know.
Right. So is your point that this is something they wouldn't need to just shut down all new registrations for?
I don't know that it pertains. I don't know it had any effect on the new registrations because like it seemed like the fix here was really simple. Just put up some type of access control around the database so it's no longer publicly exposed. Wiz doesn't get into, I don't think they got into detail about how it was secured. But when there's no authentication and no security mechanisms protecting the database from the public internet, like that's really bad. So I don't think it has anything to do with the new registrations. I think those are two different things. But I think you could maybe read into, okay, if they did something this reckless and this dumb on their back end, Maybe they don't. Maybe there is something else. Like maybe they are susceptible to DDoS or other types of attacks. And I certainly don't put it past some of the folks out there to launch a powerful DDoS attack against a Chinese competitor like DeepSeek. So,
Yeah, there's a I guess my response to you is that this is one of those situations where you get a little bit of information and then you have more questions.
yeah, for sure.
And the thing I'm sort of thinking about is one, I'm not qualified enough at a technical level to know how one thing happened like this or what the cascading effects might have been. But what I'll say is if they made this model for a fraction of the cost of all these other models, one has to assume that this company, unless it's lying, is not as well resourced as OpenAI, which is probably one of the most over resourced companies ever.
Yeah,
So, which leads me to wonder if they don't have a huge team, if they don't have a huge amount of resources, do things that should be obvious start to fall through the cracks? And when you have uh, a limited team, maybe with this extremely popular product that maybe they didn't expect to take off this aggressively, when you're trying to maintain the user base that you have and trying to do what you can with sort of a limited scope of ability, maybe small problems become really big problems because your attention can only be directed to a few things at once.
yeah,
So could it be something as simple as they're not very good at their security? Maybe, probably, I don't know. But when something goes from quiet to loud unexpectedly very quickly, mistakes can kind of happen that way too.
true, true. And I think I'll just say one of the things that's popped up since the launch of ChatGPT is this idea that the AI startups need to do more to protect their models, their data. They need to improve, the startups need to improve their security because they are targets. And just as we've seen in the past with mobile technology, cloud technology, et cetera, when there's a new market and there's a lot of startups, don't always put a lot of resources or a lot of attention. It's the priority is getting the product to market, time to market. So I guess on one hand, it's encouraging to know that Chinese startups aren't any really different from American AI startups, that they're probably hyper focused on their models and getting their products to market and maybe not as focused on cybersecurity and stuff. Going back to the registration issue, I do kind of wonder, and I've seen other people speculate about this, and it is pure speculation, but maybe it wasn't a DDoS thing at all. Maybe it was they saw, with the surge in popularity, they saw a lot of account activity, new registration activity that uh, concerned them in some way. Maybe they felt like there were fraudulent accounts. Maybe they felt like they were sock puppet accounts. Maybe they thought there were bots out there just commissioned to just sign up as many accounts as possible. Maybe they felt like they were being used by competitors to study the model in ways that DeepSeek didn't like. There's all sorts of possibilities. So it's not just DDoS, and it's not just the possibility that maybe they got overwhelmed by their own traffic. I will say I was glad that Trend Micro at least confronted that idea in the story that you wrote,
Mm-hmm.
because it seemed just a little odd that suddenly popular, super hot company has part of their service goes down and they have trouble meeting demand. We've seen that before. So I was glad that they at least confronted the possibility that there was no malicious attack. But I got to say, like, as mentioned before, the fact that this went on for several days and the fact that there's just been general shenanigans around AI providers and like public facing chatbots. And, you mentioned the prompt injections and all sorts of like, we're trying to lift training data. We're trying to observe how these models work. We're testing them. Security researchers are testing them. Maybe they just saw something that they did not like and they got concerned about and they wanted to implement more sort of restrictions or a verification on the back end to make sure that the people that were signing up for accounts were legitimate users. Could be
Hmm.
something as simple as that. Uh, but I do think, at the end of the day, I think that some of the concerns that people have out there about security and data privacy and what am I putting into this reasoning model, this assistant, this chatbot, whatever. What is it learning about me? Where is that data going and how secure is that data? I think are very real questions and concerns. So I certainly don't begrudge the folks out there, especially in the security research community, who are asking those questions. But I think I'm with you, and I'll let you speak for yourself. I do worry. There seems to be a fine line between that and just sort of red menace like panic about China.
Yeah, I would say I would say the most diplomatic way I could sort of phrase this is when you start, and I'm talking indirectly to like the tech influence executive type people,
Hmm,
the Sam Altmans. When you cry wolf so many times while responding earnestly to so few of the criticisms against your own product, it's hard to take you seriously in situations like this. Which means, maybe DeepSeek is some sort of could be malicious. I have no idea, right? But if Sam Altman says something, I'm not gonna trust it necessarily.
right.
So yeah, the Red Menace stuff has bothered the heck out of me. And you know what? Like we have to write stories a lot about Chinese nation state actors.
Sure. Yeah.
There's a fine line we have to walk, and I think we do a good job of being careful about how we phrase it because, you know, China is fundamentally one of the United States' cyber adversaries. They just hacked a ton of telecom providers. There are a lot of folks that based on that are acting in the interest of China that would harvest every ounce of data they want. I mean, but some of the ways people have been talking about this DeepSeek stuff have went about 4 levels past that, I would
Yeah.
say.
And it's interesting too, because now, we see news that Microsoft is going to start building DeepSeek models on Azure. I mentioned the Sam Altman tweet. It seems like there's an acceptance that, okay, this company is here to stay. We may have tried to poke holes in it. We may have made a big concern, TikTok level concern about data privacy and all this stuff, and then the censorship. But now it becomes a question, I think, of, well, what is going to happen with the money that we're investing in AI? We were told for a couple of years now that these are hugely expensive projects that need a lot of computing power. And here's the startup that comes in, and this is just after the big, what was it, 500 billion investment, OpenAI, it was announced with Trump. that we're going to build all this new infrastructure because AI needs all this computing power and needs all this. We need resources. We need new data centers. And here's this Chinese startup who says, no, we're actually doing it with PS3s. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we're doing it for less with less computing power and less cost, fewer dollars. Who knows if that's really true, but I think that is going to shake up a lot of the status quo in this industry. So we'll see where it goes. I'm sure we're going to be covering it for a long time. Uh, like I said, DeepSeek doesn't appear to be going anywhere. And I'm sure we're going to have a lot more security researchers or security research coming from various bug hunters, cybersecurity vendors. They're going to be taking a hard look at this company and where the data is, where it's going, how they're securing their company, their model, et cetera, et cetera. So interesting times we live in, Alex.
Yeah, I think this is what folding at home on PlayStation 3 was for all those years ago.
Good one. Good reference.
That's a fairly deep cut.
Yeah, no, I like it. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Well, Alex, thank you for chatting with me today about DeepSeek. I appreciate it.
Sure.
And thank you to the readers and listeners of Informa Tech Target and the Risk and Repeat podcast. I'm Rob Wright, and we'll see you next time.